Thanks for coming today, and thank you so much, Suzanne, for putting this together and getting all the yummy food. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to show you guys around Animal Asia's Moon Bear Rescue Center in China, because it's a pretty incredible place, and I was really fortunate to have a chance to visit it. Before I start with the slideshow, I wanted to introduce Alice Ng. She is Animals Asia's US Director. And after I get done showing you some slides from our visit to China, she's going to show you some slides from her even more recent visit, just last week, to our brand new sanctuary that's opening in Vietnam. But we're going to start with China. And back in... Everybody knows me here, right? My name is Morgan Lance, and I am the US Outreach Coordinator for Animals Asia. And I used to work here at MHS, and I'm really happy to see a lot of friendly faces from the past. Yeah, some of them, not all of them. A few. So back in April, I got a phone call on a Friday afternoon from Alice saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to China in a week and a half, and so are you. And I was like, wow, great. This is so exciting, because I've been volunteering for Animals Asia for years and then working for them for about a year at that time, and was really excited to have my first in-person glimpse of a moon bear. And so we quickly got passports and plane tickets and visas, and hopped on a plane to Chengdu, China. And Chengdu is right here. It's in Sichuan province, right in the center of China. It's close to the northern parts of China, which are really mountainous, and Tibet over here. Probably most of you have heard about Chengdu because of the earthquake that took place there in May. That was about a month after we visited. And the center of the earthquake, epicenter of the earthquake, was less than 100 miles from Animals Asia's Moon Bear Sanctuary. So, let's see here. We landed in Chengdu, which is a modern, industrialized sort of city, and quickly made our way out into the beautiful Sichuan countryside. We rode on a bus for about 45 minutes and found our way to Animal Asia's Moon Bear Rescue Center, just outside of Chengdu. This center was started by Jill Robinson. She's the founder of the Animals Asia Foundation. And in 1997, she was working for the International Fund for Animal Welfare and stumbled upon a bear farm in mainland China as part of a tour. And she went off from the tour group and down into a basement, and what she found horrified her, and it also changed the course of her life. And this is the one and only slightly challenging picture to look at, but I promise it's not as difficult as the ones from the dog and cat presentation I did a couple months ago. What she found was this, rows and rows of endangered Asiatic black bears, also known as moon bears because of the beautiful golden crescent shape of fur on their chest, in cages like these. They're called crush cages. The bears live in them for sometimes up to 20 years, while their bile is extracted via either a crude metal catheter or an open hole in their abdomen. Some of the bears are kept in small farms, 5, 10 bears in kind of a mom and pop farm in some of the rural parts of China. And others are in more industrialized, basically factory farms. There are estimates that about 10,000 moon bears are living in these types of conditions right now throughout China. And it's really interesting. Bear bile has healing properties. It's got a component in it called ursodeoxycholic acid, and it's been used for thousands of years in China to treat liver illnesses, fevers, eye problems. And in fact, right now, researchers in the US are looking into it as a possible cure for Huntington's, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's diseases. But what happened was, 3,000 years ago, some very smart traditional Chinese medicine practitioner figured out that using bile from bears, and specifically moon bears, because they have a very high concentration of ursodeoxycholic acid in their gallbladders and in their bile, that using that bile could help heal people. And so back then, what was happening was bears were just being poached. Someone would find a bear in the wild, they would kill it and remove its full gallbladder. In the 1980s, the bear was added to the endangered species list. In fact, it's a CITES Appendix 1, which means it's among the most endangered animals in the world. And at that time, the Chinese government realized they couldn't let rampant poaching continue. And some enterprising businessmen decided that the thing to do was to start farming the bears. They thought that this way they could extend the lives of the bears and not have to kill them, thus keeping the numbers steady. And then they also realized they could make a lot more money by extracting bile throughout the course of a bear's life instead of just taking the gallbladder in one shot. So the bile is sold throughout Asia, and it's actually sold here in the United States as well. You could go to Chinatown today and find bear bile from China being sold. In fact, because of the farming situation in China, there's a glut of bear bile on the market, and it's now ending up in wine and shampoo and all kinds of things. The good news is there are about 50 herbal alternatives to bear bile, and there's also synthetic versions available that are already being manufactured by pharmaceutical companies here in the US. And they're cleaner, and they've got better efficacy rates than what's coming out of these poor bears. So in 2000, Jill did the unthinkable. She signed a historic agreement with the Chinese government, the first time a Westerner and a Western nonprofit ever did such a thing. Signed an agreement to rescue 500 bears from the worst farms in Sichuan province. And in October of 2000, she was given the rights to use a wildlife sanctuary that had been abandoned in Sichuan. She got in there with her team and started cleaning it up really fast. And it was good that she did it quickly, because in December, the first 63 bears arrived at the Animals Asia Moon Bear Rescue Center. Alice and I were going to see a new set of bears last April. 28 new bears had just arrived from some farms in Sichuan. These were some of the worst bears that Animals Asia has ever seen in terms of their body conditions. In fact, one bear arrived dead in his cage at the sanctuary, and several others passed away within a few days of arriving. To date, of those 28 bears, only 13 are still with us because of various injuries and illnesses they sustained on the farms. But this is the cage that the bear was living in on the sanctuary, on the farm. And when I say living in it, I mean living in it. I'm talking about not ever leaving that cage for up to 20 years. When we arrived at the sanctuary, we were able to see health checks done on 2 of the last bears that had come in from that group of 28. And the very first thing that the team did was anesthetize the bear, get it out onto a scale and weigh it. And then our vet team took a really good look at the bear. One of the things they were looking at was the mouth. The teeth are often broken by biting the bars in their crush cages out of frustration and boredom. Sometimes the teeth are removed very crudely by the farmers because they're afraid of being bitten by the bears. So the vets were checking their mouth, checking their whole body. They used ultrasound equipment to check the abdomen. What they're looking for here is the condition of the gallbladder. They're also looking at the condition of the liver. Because what we found is in our bears, those who eventually pass away, 80% of them die of liver cancer. And so our vet staff is really looking into the connection now between the bile extraction process and the liver cancer that's developing later in these bears' lives. And Alice got the honors of giving a manicure to a bear, which is a lot harder than doing it on a dog, I have to tell you. It takes 2 hands, it really does. Those are big, thick claws. And when the bear was all done getting a health check, it was moved into a recovery cage. And some folks who have seen these pictures have said, what a strange thing to do, to take a bear that's been in a crush cage its whole life and stick it in another cage. Why not just let it go out free in the sanctuary? And the reason is twofold. One, physically, the bear could not handle this. You can imagine an animal who's been lying flat on its back or its stomach for years and years and years is going to have severe muscle atrophy, arthritis in the joints, all kinds of problems. And they could actually really hurt themselves if they were allowed to just be outside of a cage and allowed to be mobile, right off the bat. Secondly, psychologically, they would not be able to handle going from such a small, confined environment to wide open spaces. It would really just, they would shut down. So we moved them into these larger cages,